Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'm very excited to be here. This is my first time in L&D, and I'm loving Berlin as well. So thank you for having me. So as you see, this is the title of our presentation. I work for Pontificia Universidad Javeriana in Bogotá, Colombia, and we have this collaborative project with ASICACH, which is an indigenous organization of which I would talk about a little bit more right now. As you see, I'm going to be talking about this collaborative process, and I wish the women we work with will be here, but I'm honoring them, their territory, their ancestors, and of course, their wisdom. This is an interdisciplinary group. I'm not working alone, fortunately. So we are from different fields. Maria Cuiro, Hitoma Cuiro, she's the local researcher in the territory, and she's a filmmaker. So we all work together from different perspectives in this project. And these are the women we've worked with. They are known as sabedoras, all their wisdom ladies, let's say, some more or less the translation. I will be showing you a little bit about the context, the languages that they speak, and how the collaborative archiving process went about, and what it is about. In the end, I hope we can talk a little bit about cartophonies as a methodology to archive. So, as you know, this is Colombia. Colombia is part of Latin America, as you see there, and the project was developed in the Amazon rainforest. You know that it is really huge, and almost half of Colombia is part of is the Amazon. So right there, you see the place where we worked is in Chorrera. In Colombia, there are about 2 million indigenous peoples. Indigenous people, and around 115 groups. It doesn't mean that there are this many languages. In the past, there were around 84. Today, some people talk about 64 languages that are still spoken. We're working with these groups, with Toto, Okaina, Bora, and Muinane. These are the numbers that are mentioned in the last census in 2018, but these numbers are not really, let's say, precise, right? In Chorrera, Amazonas, which is where we worked, there are around 3,000 people. Half of them are adults. And they have been victims, let's say, of slavery because of the rubber exploitation. And then after that, and there was a massacre, a huge massacre there during that period. And then the Catholic missionaries also came and colonized them. So it was pretty recent that they were given back their territory in 1988. This is the name of their territory. And our constitution, quite recently, 1991, recognized these people as people. Before that, they were not even people, right? The languages, they themselves are called the people of the center, the children of tobacco, coca, and sweet cassava. That's the name that they named themselves. And these are the languages, very endangered, as you see. This is in Chorrera, in this particular territory where we work with. These are around the numbers that we have identified during our project. We have been working with these communities for about 5 years. They came to us, to the university, saying that given this situation, they really want to try to do something with the languages and try to, let's say, survive, maintain their languages. So these languages are very endangered, as you see. Sorry about the title. It is called the collaborative archiving process, how it went by. This is a co-creation kind of process. We wanted to create something together with women. I mean, we started, with a previous project in which men were only involved. But then it was pretty clear when I went and visited, I was invited to come and know the community. It was very clear that women wanted to participate and women wanted to do something about the languages. So men were not that happy, but eventually the second project that we have developed is this one. And they decided, they gave in, and they allowed the women, so to speak, to work with us. So with women, with these older women, what we did was make decisions together as to what to collect. And they thought that the best way to start with was recording lullabies, chants, and songs for children, right? That they thought they were using in the past, but that women don't use anymore, and that could be the beginning to, come back to their languages. So the 4 groups were included and represented by these women, and all of these songs and chants are related to the territory, right? They talk about either an animal, they invoke a spirit. So we decided along with the women that the landscapes were gonna be collected as well. So we started collecting the sounds of the territory as well. And we went along the river. This is the river, excuse me, that is called Igara-Paraná, and they live around the river. So we went to their specific places where they lived, and we recorded the songs and the chats with the women, but also the sounds of the territory that were included. So it includes animals and the sounds that they decided should be recorded. We archived or have archived the sounds in this platform that is called the Internet Archive. Maybe some of you know it. It provides agency to both those who have uploaded and created the content. This was what we found the best. I mean, we could talk about it if you want to. So we have here the sounds archived, right? And the pictures of the women, and also all the different sounds. If we have time, I will show you a little bit of them. But what we did was to create their own platform with a wiki. It was a low budget kind of project. We alone have maybe 3,000 euros, more or less, for this project. So this is a low budget technology that we did. And we call it a cartophony, but of course, women decided that the best name for it was canasto de sonidos, which means basket of sounds. And this is what they have created. Their part of their economy is based on building baskets in their materials. So that's what they named it. And this is the name, and the definitions of how we call the cartophony came from them. These are the parts that this cartophony includes. And this can be used offline because, these communities, they don't have electricity most of the day, just a couple of hours. But they do have cell phones, and they do have some computers in the schools. So we created this platform also thinking about how we can bring this technology to these conditions. So it could be used in the computers, and we are working on how to make the technology to make it available for their phones. So what we include is, as you see, information, the titles, the information about the women. So we have metadata related to the songs, the classification of the sounds that they made in both languages, in Spanish or in the indigenous language that they have, some photos that they have selected. Also, we included illustrations of that represent the territory or the specific animal or part of the territory that was mentioned in the sounds. And as you see, we have the sound in their language and also the explanation that they include. And these explanations are related mostly with what's the purpose of these songs, right? This has a purpose of healing, mostly, calming down the children, but also invoking, parts of the territory, spirits of the territory, for some sort of healing for the people, specifically children. And we also did these maps of sounds, as we call it, in which we include, by means of an these visuals, right? We include both representation of both the territory and the voice, the human voice. So that was interesting for them. And also it has a dictionary, words that they selected themselves from their own language that were important or represented in the songs, and they translated them and they wrote them, and they wanted to include in both languages the names, in Spanish and in their own language. So there are a large number of words for each sound. So what we did with that after the creation was to bring it to the schools and to the teachers with a series of workshops. And it was very interesting because we worked together with teachers on what to do, how to use this material that was, for preservation and for archiving purposes, but also it could be used as pedagogical material. And with the teachers, what we did was to discuss about this relationship between language and territory. And we designed a series of activities to develop with the children in other places different from the school, like the Maloca, which is like a local place for them to get together. And they developed these maps. They drew these beautiful maps with different kinds of materials from the territory as well, colors and dirt and stuff like that, as to think of where to map these sounds in the territory. So the idea of mapping and mapping sounds and mapping their territory was all behind this research project. And it was interesting for women, these elderly women to work with teachers as well. So these are the benefits of cartophonies that we have found in this project. Is, we have this women's view of language that is, it's not very common for women to describe their own languages and, to archive them. Of course, it was empowering to them. They usually don't make decisions in their territory. They have never received any kind of compensation whatsoever before, and they have never been recorded. And most of these women are very, very old. One of them is the last woman who speaks Okaina. So it was very empowering for them, and of course, changing their attitudes towards the languages after being in all these traumatic experiences. And of course, we try to promote intergenerational dialogue and discuss about what it means to teach an indigenous language and the relationship between language and territory, as I said before. Challenges, yes, documentation and archiving this kind of materials, which is the next step that we want to do, and the idea of archiving for the people more than for the linguists. And I think that's all for now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have plenty of time for questions.
I'm curious about working with the women and how this was perceived by the rest of the community when you started working with just a particular group, and how this then was working. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Sure. I think that men were kind of reluctant towards this process because they thought that I wasn't in the first part of the project. They started with a museum kind of project. They developed some sort of, they were recollecting traditions that were lost in the previous project, which were only men, and my colleagues were only men. So they then invited me, and they thought, and I invited other women colleagues, so they thought that we were there to divide them some sort of way. So the first conversations that we had in the Maloca with women and men, and specifically with men who made the decisions, the local governments, they asked us, like, why are you here to divide us, right? And this is not our purpose. Of course, they were all the time there, like hearing what the women were saying, and they were at the beginning kind of reluctant, but then they saw that, that it was all in the benefit of the community, and they were happy with the results, I think. They still don't like us that much, but but it's okay. It's part of the process, I guess.
Yes, just a very short question. The teachers, are these only women, or do they have men as teachers?
Yeah, teachers, there was only one woman teacher. Yeah, the other teachers were men.
All the teachers are men, yeah, and they accepted then
language teachers, because we're working, these workshops were with the language teachers, the teachers who teach the languages, which are few, who are few. So yeah, there's only one woman. But yeah, they were very interested in this material.
First, a comment. I find it so funny that they would say that they felt like you were dividing them, because anybody who's ever walked into a Maloka meeting knows all the women sit on one side and all the men sit on the other. So it's already very divided. So I found that kind of funny. But I wanted to ask if the women you've been working with, have they been wanting to now extend beyond songs into other areas as well to include in this? And sort of what are some of the future plans that they have for what they would like to include or the direction they'd like to take it in?
Yeah, thank you for your question. Actually, one of the challenges that I wanted to include was, the resources and the building capacity, because they do want to continue designing on their own stuff, and using this kind of technology on their own. So capacity building is a challenge for us, because there has to be someone, who is in charge of this, maintaining this in the community. And of course, our local researcher, she wants to continue, but we don't have the resources, and they are looking for the resources, and I am also looking for resources to continue. But what they want, and we have collected alongside with this, is the ecological part. They are facing climate change, and they are very worried about how it has changed their calendars, their ecological calendars. So the next project has to continue on that side of, the connection with the calendar, with the ecological calendar that they have. So we have some recordings about signs, signs that they take from nature, from the animals and the sounds and the territory, to know when time is changing. And that's probably the way that they will go. But yeah, we don't have the resources right now, so we have to wait a little bit. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this. I love this project, and I love the idea of cartophonies. And also the importance of integrating the soundscape into the recording, because as an old tendency of when you record, you want something clean, and you try to ask people around to shut up and not go near a waterfall or something to record the thing. And I was wondering if the project, from the woman perspective, that was also important to record the sound without them speaking. Also with this idea of, especially in Amazonia, but in other parts of the world, the language is not just the human language, and also comes from outside, and also to just go away from this idea, the sharp division between human and non-humans.
Exactly. For them, there is not this division. And what we did was record their voices in the Maloka, which was kind of silent, and of course we tried to have the perfect scenario possible, as perfect as possible, to collect the sounds very clean. And then the landscape we collected in different moments, looking for the animal and looking for the specific place. And so we did walks with them and everything. So there were two different processes. And technically then we put them together. But yeah, for them there is not this separation. For them it was really important to collect the sound of the animal. They even could mimic it very well. Even in their languages, we noticed that there are some sounds that are used to invoke these spirits. So all of that is very interconnected. Yeah.
Thank you very much for this really exciting talk. I work in the Bajo Amazonas region in Peru. There are lots of Bora and Watoto and speaking people in other countries too. And I wonder if you or the speakers have any plans to diffuse these materials to other Boran and Watoto and speaking communities?
That would be great. The problem is that people in the community in Chorrera, they don't really maintain that much of contact with people outside. And even they told us, we don't want to work with people who leave, They think that people should stay and should work there. And they are the ones who decide who to work with. But I'm hoping that in the future, they see that it is important to maintain these relationships. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. I
everyone.
think that's all the time we have. Thank you, speaker.